Hey everyone, and welcome to the Headliner Podcast. We're your hosts, Nicholas and Elissa, and we're here to keep you in the loop on all the things you can do to promote your podcast. So, Elissa, what are we going to talk about today?
I think we should talk about transcription.
Okay, cool. So let's do that. What is transcription?
Yeah, so transcription, it's literally just a written account of what was said. So whether that's a YouTube video or a podcast, it's just
Mhm.
a one for one of whatever you said.
Cool. So I'm like imagining a courtroom stenographer. So we're going to teach people how to do that today.
Minus the courtroom, yeah.
Well, okay, that's good to know. All right, so transcription. So I guess maybe one of the things we can open with is why? Why should we take the time to transcribe or show like a text version of what people are saying? Isn't the point of a podcast to listen to it?
The point is to listen to it, but if you aren't transcribing your podcast or your YouTube video or whatever content, you're definitely leaving discovery and listenership on the table.
Mhm.
So, podcast, obviously, audio first content, shifting towards video, but audio for
Sure.
right now. So, there is a large cohort of people that are hard of hearing or have a hearing impairment. They can definitely listen. They enjoy podcasts, but it might be kind of difficult to hear, whether that's because of a hearing impairment or they're a non-native speaker, the
Sure.
environment. There's so many reasons that something can be difficult to hear. And so it just really, by having a transcription, it builds on kind of this idea of inclusivity and accessibility for your content, regardless of the situation on the listener's end.
I love that. That's so true. And I think you actually, I'm looking at our doc, and I'm not going to pretend that I know this off the top of my head, but there's a stat in here that really perked my ears, no pun intended. But according to the National Institute on Deafness, the NIH, 15% of adults in the US have some form of hearing loss, which is a crazy stat. And you're saying that, hey, by going out and putting this transcript here, you can just give people an accessibility option, which is an important thing everyone enjoys, you know?
Exactly. And especially in the US, we've obviously been focused in a lot on podcast listenership in the United States and English speaking countries,
Hmm.
as they have the most podcast listeners. But taking that number of 15% of US adults, if you kind of do all the math and think about, okay, how many people listen to podcasts in the United States? About 42% of adults.
Hmm.
That's almost 16 million people that are affected by some sort of hearing impairment, but still listen to podcasts and enjoy podcasts. So
Sure.
having a transcript ensures that they're really able to enjoy your content and stick with it. So if maybe you mumble, you have an accent, something's a little bit loud, just having that transcript is going to allow almost 16 million people to be able to easily access and understand everything that's being said.
That makes total sense to me. And look, it doesn't even stop there, I think. I think one of the things that I used to always say, and I think I've said it on this podcast, is, transcripts on a social video level, not even just on the podcast itself. I've always found those helpful because when I used to commute to an office, I'd I'd be on the subway, and sometimes the subway is, believe it or not, kind of loud. And sometimes you don't want to make eye contact with somebody at the crack of dawn. So just having that transcript on your phone, it allows you to actually get value from what you're listening to. And you get to avoid socializing with people, which is like always a win. I don't know. Um,
Introverts unite, truly.
Introverts unite. Yeah, we're out there. There are dozens of us. So, that's cool. And on top of that, we're a visual species. We're visual learners, or at least some of us are. And having that transcript there, yeah, I might be able to get the gist of something from listening to it, but it's when I'm actually able to take my time and read it that a lot of that like learning happens. So if you're especially focused on like data and numbers, a good transcript will just like actually help get your message across.
Exactly. And I'll kind of bounce points. So I know that we both are looking at the script, so I'm going to bounce points. So building on that, it also adds to the user experience. So kind of regardless of how they're listening, whether that's YouTube,
Mhm.
Apple Podcasts just rolled this out too, but they have closed captioning. So having the transcript is going to allow whatever platform people are on, that allow it, of course, to have a very accurate written account of what's being said. So it'll populate on their screen. Um, super important for things like proper nouns. So especially a lot of fiction podcasts or like the D&D podcast, got some funky names on there. So it might not always, you'll be hearing it and you're like, oh, okay, that sounds great. Like I'm trying to think, I'm reading the Lord of the Rings right now. So like Mordor, that might not come off like perfect.
Sure.
On a transcript, but if you are the one transcribing it, you can kind of control for that and ensure like, okay, those proper nouns are spelled correctly. So that builds just on the user experience. It's also great and huge part of podcasting 2.0. So obviously we have a lot of podcasters that listen to the show. So for podcasting 2.0, it is one of kind of those pillars that gives you more control of your content. And then once again, just kind of builds on that user experience and engagement.
Okay, yeah, that makes total sense. And now we have to talk about Lord of the Rings later. Just I'm going to put a pin on that for later. But anyway, okay, that's awesome. So it can physically make your podcast better because it's helping make it more accessible to people, and it's making sure that the information is being parlayed to folks in the right way. Names are correct, all of that. Awesome.
Mm-hmm. And additionally, for podcasts like, podcast players, goodness, like Apple Podcast, they do allow for you to kind of combine your chapters and your transcripts at times. So that really allows people to kind of scrub through a little bit more easier. So like on YouTube, you've got chapters and that's normally clearly marked in the
description.
The description, yep. Then also in the player bar now. So it can really kind of help for that user experience once again. So maybe somebody was listening on their desktop or something and they were like, oh, I already listened to this. It really allows them to kind of jump and find stuff a lot easier so they can have a seamless listening experience.
Okay, great. So it continues with that idea of like this actually just makes the consumption experience better. What about the actual production side? Is there a reason to have a transcript other than, I don't know if this is in the sheet or not, but the obvious one is I just completed an interview with somebody. Let me get a transcript so that I know what I'm going to edit, you know? Mm-hmm. That's just the old fashioned like interview model when you're doing like in journalism, that's how it's always been done. But what about on the production side? What else can we like look to as a benefit for a transcript? Hint, SEO.
So discovery and SEO. Huge part of transcripts. So it's kind of like having a transcript is like giving all of these players, YouTube, Google, search, whatever, a map that leads straight to your podcast. So we know that YouTube search engines, they can't necessarily listen to your podcast or watch your podcast, but they can read. So if you have all of these lovely words that are attached to your podcast, then it's like, okay, I can really understand what's going on here. Can kind of push it out, grab those keywords. When people are typing the things, trying to find things, it's going to really easily kind of populate just by having your transcript attached to your show.
Right, exactly. And then again, I'm not going to pretend that I know this off the top of my head, but right on the sheet, adding transcripts can increase organic traffic by like 15% and can increase keyword lift by up to 50%. Yeah. So this is like a huge difference. And especially nowadays, which we'll get into shortly, creating a transcript of great and high quality is like super easy. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, setting up for a pitch at the end. But it's stuff like that. So it helps in a big way. It isn't that much work to do anymore. And it's, it ultimately fulfills like the objective of every podcast, which is to get listened to. So. And
I do, again, pretending we don't have a sheet off the top of my head. We have a great example. So This American Life, super famous, right? They just added transcripts. So this was a study done a couple years ago, but they added transcripts to their back catalog of shows, and they were able to see a direct impact that could be attributed back to search results and queries based on their transcript.
Interesting.
So they actually saw a 7% lift in search attribution just from their transcript. That's all they did. They didn't change anything. Wow. And for a show of that caliber, that's over 500,000 listeners.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of traffic.
Yeah.
I mean, and to be clear, this was a transcript being added to the show itself, not like here's a website where we dump the transcript also.
Exactly.
Which is an option. And, that is a great way to cover your bases if you have a website too. Okay, I'm like trying to wrap my head around that. That's actually a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 7%. Like you're like, okay, that's not nothing for the end of the day. Like any percent is a good percent, but 500,000 listeners just by adding a transcript. Like that was
Hmm.
probably like what, 5 minutes of effort per
Yeah, 5
episode?
minutes of like actual
Maybe.
effort, not
Yeah.
queuing it for to be transcribed. Just, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a lot. I love that. And on the note of the actual effort that goes into this stuff, maybe you could tell me, how does one transcribe things? Again, I am the person who does not podcast. I do not know anything about podcasts. How do you get one?
So I would be remiss in not plugging Headliner. So Headliner does offer a free transcription service. It's called Eddy. So you can go to make.headliner.app,
Hmm.
click on the pink transcribe button right in the middle of your screen. And regardless of how you're recording, so if you have audio or if you have video, you can connect it to Eddy. So we've got lovely Zoom, Google Drive, and YouTube connects. So super easy. Log into your account. Boom. All your stuff is now imported into Eddy. And
Hmm.
you click a button that says, hey, transcribe me. And now you get a lovely generated Word document that you can kind of edit and play along with, do all sorts of things, but it's your transcript.
There you go. And now I'm going to step in and actually act like I know what Eddy is because I obviously do. It goes far beyond that. Like we were talking kind of about the way that a transcript can help you produce a podcast. Yeah, using Eddy to edit a podcast is so easy and so great. If you have a long interview and you know for a fact that there's a clip that you just want to get out of the way really quick, you have a search function in Eddy. It is literally like using Google Docs. And you can just search for the keyword you need and you can pull a specific clip. You can remove stuff. It's super easy to use and it's like legitimately coming in handy for editing podcasts. I'm not kidding. I edit my own podcast on the side. I edit some other shows and it's a good tool.
Yeah. And outside of just also getting the transcript, it has a lovely podcast promo pack that comes with Eddy. Excuse me, with every project, not Eddy project. I mean, it it kind of
Technically
does,
does.
but
Yeah.
yeah. But so the podcast promo pack, it gives you literally everything that you would need to just kind of upload your podcast and optimize it.
Mhm.
So it'll give you relevant branded show notes with chapters. So again, kind of pointing back to that podcasting 2.0. It does have the capability to even have the super chapters, so you can kind of do all the linking and all the things that you need to do with that within Eddy. So again, kind of pointing to that nice, lovely user experience. But again, you can just kind of copy and paste it, put it into whatever you're hosting with or into YouTube directly. Really easy way to get everything optimized. And speaking of SEO and discoverability that we talked about a little bit earlier in the show, you get up to 20 relevant keywords. So your tags in your host, again, copy paste. You've got super relevant, awesome keywords that can majorly impact kind of the discoverability of your show. And again, kind of pointing back to the very beginning of the episode, just having those types of things can increase your keyword lift, which is just through like search and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, thank you, Elissa, for explaining the joys of transcription. So, on that note, I don't know. Do we have anything else we want to tell our users or our listeners or both?
Yeah, I'll just plug another feature of Eddy because why not? It's my
Yeah,
job to do that.
by all means.
So not only can you generate kind of one-off projects, but you can set up automations. So Headliner, we're known for our automations. So why not carry that logic into transcription? But you can go ahead and just connect your podcast to Eddy directly and get a lovely, accurate transcript of everything that you've said in the past. So you can even just go into your host and just first download your new lovely transcript from episode 1, post it into your host from episode 1, and just do that all the way. So if you have hundreds and hundreds of episodes, now you can get them really optimized for SEO purposes, discoverability, accessibility, all those good things.
Give them that fresh coat of paint, so to speak. Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much, Elissa. This has been very eye-opening to me. Not because I didn't know a lot of this stuff, again, full disclosure, but like it's good to be reminded of this. And I'm sure a lot of people listening to this are like, yeah, we know, guys. But like, yeah, but don't pretend some of this stuff wasn't a good reminder. I don't know. At any rate, I'm just going to end the podcast now. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.